Rise. The Right Honourable, the Lord Mayor. City of Adelaide Council meeting on Tuesday the 14th of November 2023. The Lord Mayor is in the chair. This council meeting will be streamed live and recorded for publishing to the internet. Please note that an audio and visual recording is being taken of this meeting. This means that your presence at and your contribution you make to the meeting may be collected, used, disclosed or published publicly by the Council, including transferring outside Australia.
Good evening. The Council acknowledges that we're meeting on the traditional country of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains and pays respect to elders past and present. We recognise and respect their cultural heritage, beliefs and relationship with the land. We acknowledge that they are of continuing importance to the Kaurna people living today, and we also extend that respect to other Aboriginal language groups and other First Nations people who are present with us. The Council also acknowledges the vision of Colonel William Light in determining the site for Adelaide and the design of the city with its 6 squares and surrounding belt of continuous parklands, which is recognised on the National Heritage List as one of the greatest examples of Australia's planning heritage. We pray for wisdom, courage, empathy, understanding and guidance in the decisions that we make, while seeking and respecting the opinions of others. Now, may we in this meeting speak honestly, listen attentively, think clearly and decide wisely for the good governance of the City of Adelaide and the well-being of those we serve. I now ask all those present to stand in silence in memory of those who gave their lives in defence of their country at sea, on land and in the air. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. I'm just going to go through a couple of procedural matters and then I'll explain how we'll conduct the meeting, because I understand there's a public interest and several people are here just for a couple of matters to be discussed, and it will be appropriate if we change the meeting agenda to allow you to listen to those items. So I'll just go through a couple of procedural matters first. I'm going to announce the apologies and leave of absence. On leave is the Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Martin, and I've just had apologies from Councillor Snape and Councillor Davis. I now ask someone to confirm the minutes. Moved by Councillor Noon, seconded by Councillor Siebentrit. All those in favour?
Can I ask that the minutes be taken in parts, please? There are minutes for 2 different council meetings.
I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. Can you just repeat that?
Yes, I believe we're adopting minutes for 2 different council meetings. Are we able to take them in parts so that we adopt the ordinary council meeting and the special council meeting separately?
Yes. I think it would be appropriate, if you wish to dispute one of them, that we take them in parts. Would that be all? Would the mover be happy for that, Councillor Noon? Thank you.
Yes, happy to.
So I'll firstly take a motion on the item for the 24th of October. All those in favour? Councillor Giles, thank you. All those, I'll take that again. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. And now for the minutes of the 31st of October. And you will take that. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members.
Lord Mayor, on an item like that, are we able to call a division or not?
I think you can call a division if you wish to.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Division has been called. All those in favour?
Council members, please stand in favour of the motion in relation to the minutes for the 31st of October 2023 until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Lee, Councillor Stephenship and Councillor Giles. Thank you.
The motion has been carried. I'll just ask if there's now a declaration of conflict of interest. If there are none, I'll move on to the next item.
Lord Mayor, a motion without notice. I may need to declare a conflict of interest, but I've got my form here, so I'll submit that when we debate it, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, could I just speak mainly to the gallery and explain how I'm going to manage the meeting this evening? I think it's appropriate that we change the meeting order, and at this point we would normally have deputations, which is an opportunity for people to speak for just 5 minutes on a topic that relates to a matter on the council agenda. Most of the people in the gallery are going to speak to the motion that was put forward by Councillor Abrahimzadeh, and by our regulations I'm actually only allowed to authorise 3 deputations, but I think it's reasonable to have more, so I will be asking leave of the meeting to allow all the deputations that have been requested to have time to speak. Then I'm going to change the meeting agenda, because I think it's appropriate that we bring forward the item that's under debate to the beginning of the meeting, so that you don't have to sit through the whole council agenda and the gallery can see the matter being debated and voted upon. If necessary, I may have to suspend meeting procedures, because if it becomes difficult to get an agreement with the council members on a difficult and contentious multi-part motion, but we'll play that by ear. But I'll just start by saying there are a few expectations with our meeting procedures. When people are speaking, I just ask people to maintain a respectful silence so that we can hear them. You can, if you had them, have banners or placards, but you don't seem to have any. That's perfectly legitimate. But I just ask members of the gallery to be quiet. In terms of the council members, they will be respectfully debating this matter, and hopefully we can come to an agreement by the end of the session. So the first thing I'm going to do, since I can only approve 3 deputations, and I should note that one of the members, the public who wished to speak, has withdrawn. I've approved 3, but could I ask leave of the meeting to accept another 4 deputations, moved by Councillor Noon. This is just a show of hands, all those in favour. More than the 2/3, so that's carried. And with your approval, I seek leave of the meeting also after the deputations to bring forward 17.4 and 17.5. All those in favour, leave of the meeting, carried by a show of hands. Thank you. So now I'm going to ask the deputies to come forward. And the first person who's going to speak to us is Miss Aya Shaheen. Thank you. Would you like to come to the lectern? The orderly will switch on the microphone. I'll switch mine on.
Thank you. Good evening, councillors, Lord Mayor. My name is Aya Shaheen. I begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I am a proud Australian, but I am also a proud Palestinian. Being Palestinian is not where I am from, it is who I am. I recognise the motion put forward by Council Member Abrahimzadeh and urge all council members to support this motion for the points I will raise in this deputation. I do not plan on making this deputation political. I will be solely focusing on the facts, on the law. Since 7 October 2023 and as at 10 November 2023, over 11,000 Palestinians have been killed and over 27,000 injured. Amongst those, over 4,500 children killed and at least 8,663 children injured. According to UNICEF, children make up approximately 47% of the population in Gaza. On 29 October 2023, Save the Children reported that in Gaza, more children had been killed in 3 weeks than the total number of children killed in conflict zones since 2019. At the time of this report, 3,195 children had been killed. Within the 12 days following 29 October 2023, bringing us to last Friday, 10 November, at least a further 1,305 children had been killed. On 8 November 2023, Amnesty International reported that over 420 children are being killed or injured every day in Gaza. These numbers exclude over 1,000 children who remain under the rubble. With that in mind, I further note that on 10 November 2023, World Health Organization Director General reported that on average, a child is killed every 10 minutes in Gaza. Under international humanitarian law, no person is to be punished for acts that he or she did not commit. Article 33 of the 4th Geneva Convention provides that such actions constitute collective punishment. Targeting schools, hospitals, places of worship, and homes, targeting civilians, children who bear no responsibility for the conduct in question is collective punishment. The imposition of collective punishment is a war crime. As reported by Human Rights Watch on 27 October 2023, if an attack fails to discriminate between combatants and civilians or would be expected to cause, quote, disproportionate harm to the civilian population compared to the military gain, end quote, it is prohibited under international humanitarian law. I ask councillors and everyone in this room to completely disregard race, ethnicity, nationality, religion, location, and geopolitics while I continue. I ask that you all close your eyes and imagine over 4,000 dead children, 4,000 killed children. If that image does not haunt you, we do not share the same basic human values. In the spirit of fairness and equality to all civilians that have lost their lives, asking for the Adelaide Town Hall and other South Australian landmarks to be lit up in the Palestinian colours is not and should not be controversial. Did these children deserve to die? If your answer is yes, we do not share the same basic human values. My challenge to you all is, what are you going to do about it? What will your contribution be to stop these killings? What will you tell your children? Your worship, may I please have 2 extra minutes? Thank you. What will you tell your children and grandchildren when they ask, what did you do to stop or to mourn the loss of thousands of innocent lives? Thousands of children cannot be collateral damage. The large-scale deaths of civilians and children should shake humanity. A victim turned perpetrator does not make it less of a crime. I urge councillors to vote with this motion to which this deputation relates. I hope that my learned friends will recognise that this is not about politics and this is not about race. This is about humanity. This is about the children.
Thank you very much.
Tonight, councillors, Lord Mayor, I appeal to your sense of humanity. I certainly do. Thank you.
Thank you. The next deputy is Ms. Sarah Al-Khazaragi. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, are we not able to pull that back? It's very inconvenient. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Thank you. Could you come to the lectern?
Thank you. Lord Mayor and Council members, before I begin, I'd like to express my gratitude for the opportunity to speak on the motion on notice submitted by Councillor Armin Ibrahimzadeh. My last name's difficult, but your last name's difficult as well. Supporting the South Australian community impacted by the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. This conversation and the subsequent actions made by your decisions are exceedingly important, and I applaud the Adelaide City Council for creating this space so that my community can be heard. I'd like to acknowledge that we meet on traditional land of the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains, and I further extend that acknowledgement to all Aboriginal language groups and First Nations people. Tonight, as I stand here, I am a 19-year-old woman. I am a daughter, a sister, a granddaughter, and I am a friend, but I am a proud Muslim Australian above all of that, and I am part of this community in South Australia. As a resident of the City of Adelaide, I request that the Lord Mayor and the councillors light up the Adelaide Town Hall in the Palestinian colours of red, black, white and green, and engage in conversations asking and encouraging the Australian Government to join us in solidarity by lighting up Australian landmarks. I believe it is of utmost importance that the City of Adelaide facilitates a vigil for the community to grieve the innocent lives lost of both the Israelis and the Palestinian people. As an Australian Muslim, I have a deep connection and deep feelings attributed to the humanitarian crisis in Palestine. I have a moral obligation to stand up for what is right, to educate, to spread awareness, and to use my voice. The Palestinian-Israeli conflict, an escalation of conflict, the Israeli attack, the Hamas attack. These are the names that we use to describe mass death and destruction which Palestinians have endured for 75 years. As I address you, my heart breaks for the mothers and fathers identifying their wounded or dead children. For children identifying the wounded and dead parents and their siblings, I fear for the havoc unfolding each minute. 3 a.m, warplanes destroyed a family home, killing 5 innocent children. Their names, Hassan, Bayan, Mohammed, Khalid, Abdul Khalik. 6:30 a.m, warplanes fired several missiles at a residential building, killing 4 Palestinian children. Their names, Omar, Ghadda, Batul, Ahmed. 12:30 p.m, more missiles, 11 children, Khalid, Hassan, Ubaida, Mu'min, Noor, Zaina, Mace, Hala, Salma, Balsam. Every hour after that, and every minute and every second, the cycle continues. And 38 days of bloodshed and horror has seen 4,609 Palestinian children murdered. 4,609 small graves have been dug. 11,100 men, women and children have been killed by warplanes and missiles. And illuminating Adelaide Town Hall represents the solidarity, the collective acknowledgement of the injustices that these innocent men, women and children have and continue to endure. The Palestinian people are worthy of this acknowledgement. The colours of the Palestinian flag represent grief in the community. It is the flag of the Palestinian people, the black representing oppression and persecution of the Palestinians, the white symbolising peace and love, the green for prosperity, blessings and hope for a thriving future, the red for the martyrs and sacrifices that the Palestinian people have made. These colours combine and tell us a story of the plight of the Palestinians, the native indigenous people of the land. It is not the Hamas flag. Lighting Town Hall with the Palestinian flag allows for collective recognition and not selective grief. We can't only grieve for some who are slaughtered or some who have been affected. We must be compassionate. We must be fair and equal for our brothers, our sisters, our neighbours and our friends. I ask you, Lord Mayor and councillors, to provide comfort, to foster equality in the acknowledging of our loss as a world. I am a voice for those who can't speak. I encourage you to be the example, to be a shoulder to lean on for Palestine. To my Palestinian brothers and sisters here and in Gaza, I say you are not alone. We see, we care, and we grieve for you. So, Lord Mayor and councillors, grieve with me, support my Muslim community, light up the Adelaide Town Hall in green, red, white and black, and think of these children, think of the 11,100 men, women and children who have passed.
because of the 5 minutes I stand here and speak to you for feel like hours for the children trapped under rubble, or feel like hours for the mothers that are trying to find the children. We have a responsibility because we sit in this safety. May I please have 1 more minute? We have sat in the safety and warmth of these walls, so grieve for those who have been killed, grieve for their struggle, grieve for my Muslim brothers and sisters, cry for those mothers and fathers who lose their children and the children who have lost their mothers and fathers. As the numbers continue to grow, have compassion, because these 11,100 and counting are worthy of acknowledgement and remembrance. Thank you.
Now could I ask, thank you, Ms. Adriana Christopoulos. Thank you. Could you come forward? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, members. I'd also like to acknowledge that we are standing on the land of the Kaurna people, and we are very fortunate to be doing so, and that this will always be Aboriginal land. Thank you, Your Worship. From the onset, I'd like to add that I am not speaking on behalf of the South Australian Multicultural Commission. I am here as an individual who values multiculturalism, and I want to add my voice in support of Councillor Abrahia Zadar's motion. Councillors, it takes courage to bring a motion like this to the chamber, and I applaud you all for having the courage to debate this motion, and I thank you for giving a platform to South Australian Palestinians and Muslims which have not been afforded to them on this issue before tonight. As we know, Australia is a diverse, multicultural country, and its society is among the most culturally diverse in the world. Multiculturalism has played a fundamental role in building a modern South Australia for the past 20 plus years, and the Palestinian community and Muslim community alike in this state have worked really hard to fight against racial discrimination. They have worked really hard to protect themselves and their families from harassment and from vilification that they have faced due to either their cultural or religious background. They have endured aggression and violence, and at its very worst, they have been stereotyped and compared to barbarians and terrorists. Muslims and Palestinian leaders have spent the last 20 years trying to break down these disgusting stereotypes, opening their mosques, their homes and their hearts for mutual understanding, for peace, and above all, acceptance. Has all of their hard work been in vain? Has it been for nothing? Will we continue to treat them as a lesser class of people? Will we continue to ignore their requests for recognition from their government, to grieve with them in public and with dignity? When governments illuminate only one nation's flag and colours above government buildings, it's a very blunt instrument to indicate which side they are on. These actions represent a lower expression of humanity, one which no longer serves us. It no longer represents or contributes to who we are as South Australians. Our identity as South Australians should be one of equality. Our signature as South Australians should be one of compassion. Countries and states built on multiculturalism like Australia should treat and respond all communities equally. Free speech and free assembly in defence of the slaughter of thousands of Palestinian children is not anti-Semitism. It is the voice of humanity, because in Australia, as a community, we can't just grieve for only one group of people who are being slaughtered in this conflict. We must formally acknowledge all deaths, because all lives are equal. As leaders, we should not be selective with our grief, and I am so ashamed to say that as a South Australian, I have understood all too well recently that equality in Australia will never really truly be realised until Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities are officially recognised in our Constitution as the traditional owners and custodians of Australia in Australia. And I'm also ashamed to say that while Australia refuses to acknowledge the impact of displacement and discrimination on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, related patterns of marginalisation are being repeated on other groups in the community, and we are seeing this played out right here, right now. We should not be continuing this pattern of marginalisation by being silent, by ignoring the effects this conflict is having on Palestinian and Muslim diaspora in Adelaide. I know that the government's silence on this will not break the unity or the determination of the Palestinian people in Adelaide. They will continue to demand to have their voices heard and their pain recognised and acknowledged. That's why I see this motion as an opportunity for this council to help give voice and recognition to the pain and grief that members of the Palestinian and Muslim community hear, reassuring them that we see their pain and we feel their grief, and for the conflict that's taking place in the Middle East. And though Palestinians may be displaced from their homelands and are now living in Australia and in Adelaide, they are not being discarded, and they're not being ignored by this council in Adelaide. I see this motion voicing the same pain and grief we all had and we all felt for the Jewish community when we illuminated in blue and white for the horrific acts of terror initiated by Hamas on the 7th of October. I saw how those barbaric acts broke our hearts and unsettled the rest of the world. Of course, this conflict is occurring overseas, but when governments are not fairly listening to the grief of this diaspora, then all the work for acceptance to... 1 minute, thank you. Then all the work for acceptance to break down Islamophobia clearly was in vain. Because what we're effectively saying is that Palestinians and Muslims here in South Australia are worth much less than other community groups. Please, let this council be the long-awaited turning point to escalate the humanitarian response to the rest of Australia, a response that Australians are desperately, they're rallying to hear and see that connection from governments. Elected members, what you stand for is important, but what you stand up for is critical. History will record you on the right side when this council honours fairly the diaspora from both sides of this conflict. By passing this motion this evening, you are essentially adding your credible voices in support of a shared humanity for all South Australians, because we are all equal. Thank you.
So we'll move on to the next deputy. Ms. Anate Henderson-Sapir, would you like to come forward, please? Thank you.
Dear Lord Mayor and councillors, thank you for giving me leave to allow me to speak to this motion. I also acknowledge we meet on the lands of the Kaurna people. I speak on behalf of the Jewish Community Council of Australia, South Australia, the peak body for Jewish and Israeli organisations. The JCC consists of elected members from all Jewish organisations in South Australia, including the Adelaide Holocaust Museum and Steiner Education Centre and the Australian Union of Jewish Students South Australia, both based in the Council's Central Ward. The JCC represents the Jewish community and coordinates the work of Jewish organisations in South Australia. We are particularly proud of our history of nurturing multicultural and interfaith relationships. Jewish South Australia is a thriving and diverse community of more than 1,500 people. Jewish immigration to Adelaide commenced in 1836, the very year Adelaide was founded, initially primarily from the UK and Germany, with later waves from the Middle East, South Africa, and the former Soviet Union. Our community continues to welcome migrants, particularly from the United States, Israel, and the UK. Jewish Adelaide is as proud of our diversity as we are of living and contributing to this great city, including through the contributions of 6 mayors and Lord Mayors of Adelaide. Within this context, I would like to speak to each of the items presented in the motion you are hearing tonight. Like the proposed item 1, I too am deeply saddened by the loss of innocent lives during this conflict. Every person in the Jewish community here in Adelaide is impacted in some way by what happened on the 7th of October and the unspeakable atrocities committed by Hamas. From those who have lost family members to those who saw the community where they were raised completely destroyed to those who still are worrying about their family in Israel. Everyone in our community has a story about the 7th of October. In my house, that story looks like a little boy, a preschooler who spent an entire week in a house shaking with rockets, not knowing what was going on, an Adelaidean by birth, an Adelaidean by spirit, who still wakes at night, terrified someone will break into our house, who cowers when a car door bangs. It's from personal experience that the Jewish community here in Adelaide knows utter empathy for those innocent Palestinians who have unwittingly been caught in the crossfire and used as human shields by Hamas in its reign of terror. Item 2 references a United Nations resolution calling for an immediate humanitarian truce. If this is intended to reference the resolution from the 26th of October, I bring to the Council's attention that Australia did not vote for this motion. Australia abstained because of the conspicuous omission of the atrocities committed by Hamas in taking an estimated 240 hostages, among whom are dozens of babies and children. As we think of the suffering of Palestinian children in Gaza who are unintended victims, please also spare a thought for the child victims of Hamas, who are its intended victims, Hamas, who openly declares that it makes no distinction between Israeli soldiers and civilians. To the community I represent, calls for a truce without also demanding for the release of hostages or even acknowledging Hamas's open threats to repeat the atrocities of the 7th of October again and again until the state of Israel is destroyed, this sounds like a moral blindness. Item 3 requests the Council to light up Town Hall in Palestinian colours, and Item 4 that Council requests the State Government do the same. I have no doubt that this action is suggested as an item of support, as an action to support innocence. Yet the use of a symbol, no matter the words said in this chamber tonight, will have its own life, and I fear unintended consequences. As President of the JCC, I have the difficult job of reviewing local reports of anti-Semitism. Following years of receiving and reviewing these reports, I deeply fear for my community that the actions proposed in the motion, as well intended as they no doubt are, will have unintended consequences and embolden those in South Australia with less pure intentions. Some will see this gesture as a social license to express their hatred. People like those who graffiti our places of worship to the extent that one of our synagogues has simply removed its sign. People like those who supported first graders at a city fringe school to prepare a presentation to their class depicting burning the Israeli flag. People like those who grabbed the throat of a security guard at the Holocaust Museum. People like those who covered my front lawn with rubbish 2 weeks ago. People like those who on the 5th of November surrounded a small, peaceful... May I have 1 more minute? Thank you. Thank you. Who surrounded a small, peaceful vigil of Israelis and Jews on Rundle Mall, mourning hostages being held by Hamas. That is not the Adelaide I know and love. The proposed symbol will be understood by some, a minority, no doubt, but a dangerous minority, to be a support for Hamas and the two common acts of hatred against some South Australians. There is no nuance in hatred. This council will not be judged by the intentions behind the gesture, but the effects. The motion is entitled Supporting Our South Australian Community Impacted by the Israeli-Palestinian Conflict. Yet in the development of this motion, Jewish South Australia was not consulted on what may be appropriate to support us, nor what we think would help support peace and cohesion in our beloved multicultural city or build bridges between Jewish and Muslim communities locally. I say without reservation that the actions in the motion are not that support. I therefore ask, are we, Jewish and Israeli South Australians, included in part of what this council understands to be the South Australian community? Far from creating a sense of support this motion state it seeks, I fear it will bring hurt, concern, and even danger to Jews and Israelis in Adelaide. Even council hearing this motion tonight has led many in my community to wonder if we are strangers in a strange land or if we're welcome here. Honourable councillors, I implore you to recognise South Australian Jews and Israelis as a part of South Australia's community. I implore you to condemn anti-Semitism in South Australia, as well as Islamophobia and any acts that seek to exclude or marginalise groups on the basis of their race, ethnicity, or nationality. I implore you to recognise that lighting up Town Hall will undoubtedly have unintended consequences. I implore you to vote against this motion as currently drafted. Thank you.
Could I ask Ms. Nicola Zuckerman to come forward now? Thank you. Thank you.
Dear Lord Mayor and councillors, thank you for granting me leave to speak this evening. My name is Nicola Zuckerman, and I also acknowledge that we stand on the land of the Kaurna people, the traditional owners and custodians of the Adelaide Plains. I was the inaugural chair of the Adelaide Holocaust Museum and Steiner Education Centre, and I'm a current member of its board. On behalf of the museum, I am opposed to the motions put before council this evening. We are gravely concerned of the unintended consequences that the approval of such a motion will have on the Adelaide Holocaust Museum and the wider Jewish community of Adelaide. The Adelaide Holocaust Museum is situated in the centre of Adelaide City at 33 Wakefield Street. It's a public institution. Our organisation exists to educate others about the history of the Holocaust and the lessons to be learned from one of the darkest moments in the history of humankind, to fight anti-Semitism, racism, and all forms of hatred, and promote a kinder and more compassionate world. During the week and on Sundays, we have paid and volunteer staff working at the museum. We deliver education programs to high school students, and the museum is open in the afternoons for public visitation. We have a duty to ensure the safety of all of our staff and all patrons of the museum. Being a public institution in the middle of the city, we are, unfortunately, a target for those with anti-Semitic and hateful sentiments. This is something the museum has already experienced in the recent past. Only last year, the museum was vandalised and with hateful stickers containing anti-Semitic slogans. You might all recall the extremely disturbing incident where a group of persons associated with the far right-wing group, the National Socialist Network, stood outside the museum dressed in all black posing with the Nazi salute. An image was posted on their social media page of that occurring. Our staff have also had to deal with members of the public attending the outside of the museum making anti-Semitic slurs. We fear that regardless of the intent behind it, there will be consequences felt by the museum by the lighting up of city landmarks in the colours of the Palestinian flag. We fear that, in some, the act will be seen as support for or encouragement of support for Hamas, the terrorist group responsible for the brutal murder of innocent Jews on the 7th of October and the taking of over 200 hostages, including babies and children, and the group responsible for the instigation of the current terrible conflict in Israel and Gaza. We fear that the Adelaide Holocaust Museum will be an easy target for those who are pro-Hamas and carry anti-Semitic sentiments. We have already seen the display of these sentiments by some of the attendees of pro-Palestinian rallies held around Australia, including in Adelaide. This is a time when the Jewish community of Australia is experiencing increasing levels of anti-Semitism, and as a consequence is feeling more fearful than ever before. This is not a time to incite, as we fear it will in some, more feelings of hatred towards the Jewish community of Adelaide. Such action will put the safety of the museum staff and patrons at greater risk of exposure to such incidents, the very poison it exists to fight against. I urge you to vote against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last deputy today will be Dr. Dan Ellis. Could I ask you to come forward? Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I also acknowledge that we meet on the traditional lands of the Kaurna people. My name is Dr. Daniel Ellis. I'm an Australian and I live and work as a doctor in Adelaide in the city. I'm also Jewish. Rather than counter many of the clear and obvious factual inaccuracies delivered by some of the proponents of the motion, I would like to share my personal experience from 10 days ago with you. On Sunday, November the 5th, I went to Rundle Mall to participate in a peaceful vigil aimed at highlighting the plight of Jewish hostages in Gaza. A small group of maybe 20 Jewish and some non-Jewish people have been doing this every Sunday for a few weeks to draw attention to the hostages. On the 5th of November, the event started peacefully as ever, and SAPOL were in attendance as usual. At around 3:45 p.m, large groups of people started to arrive, waving Palestinian flags, some with their faces covered, fully covered, in Arabic headscarves. A group of mounted police suddenly arrived, followed by dozens more police officers. What happened next had to be experienced to be believed, and there is footage available. In a few minutes, a mob had formed, chanting, screaming abuse and calling for the destruction of Israel and genocide to the Jews. The mood had totally changed and things became very threatening. The police numbers continued to swell and officers approached members of our group to say we must pack up and leave. Of course we agreed, but also asked why our tiny group, doing nothing illegal, needed to be evacuated while an angry mob, breaking the law by calling for genocide, covering their faces and threatening public order, was allowed to stay. The police officers were now understandably anxious and jittery. They apologised but said they were outnumbered and could no longer guarantee our safety. As we hastily packed up, another officer approached and said it was turning really nasty and we had to leave right now. The noise was deafening. The abuse relentless. People I had never met before were making obscene gestures directly to me and calling me a murderer. The hatred in the faces of the people as we walk past them is something I will not forget. The same people I see and treat daily in my professional practice had descended into an anarchic, toxic, anti-Semitic mob. We were marched through a tunnel of SAPOL officers, through the mob and out through David Jones. The poor police officers tasked with escorting us out seemed as stunned as we were and totally powerless. But I'm an Australian and Adelaide is my home. This is my city too. Or so I thought. Being hounded out of Rundle Mall by a violent mob, with my wife next to me in tears, I've been forced to reconsider my life in Adelaide. I've never felt more threatened or intimidated before. It appears to me that the right to peaceful protest on behalf of the Palestinians has been hijacked by extremist elements here in Adelaide and indeed across the Western world. And this does not appear to be a minority. Certainly, nobody from the hundreds of people in that mob last week was trying to defuse the situation or help the police in any way. The Palestinian cause appears firmly aligned with Hamas and other radical Islamist groups. How can we possibly...
Please.
This is
Can you just wait?
Precisely.
Can you just stop? Members in the gallery, please. You may not agree with the speakers, but we would like to show civility.
How can we possibly align our wonderful city with these nationally prescribed terrorist organisations? Meanwhile, following the actual shameful October the 9th scenes at the Sydney Opera House, the same groups of pro-Palestinian protesters in Melbourne and Sydney are now beating up Jews on the streets. Let's not forget those scenes at the Sydney Opera House were the very first in the world of the now daily toxic anti-Semitic rallies across the globe on behalf of the Palestinian cause and were beamed live to a then stunned world, to the everlasting shame of this country. This motion, if passed, would reward violent and extremist behaviour and further empower the mob to behave as they choose on the streets of Adelaide, the streets of our city. This motion would also send a clear message of support to those who committed the appalling October 7th massacre, a depraved act of barbarity not seen since the Middle Ages. Even worse, there are still over 200 hostages being held in Gaza by Hamas and other terrorist organisations. Some of these hostages are children, some are elderly, some are disabled. How on earth can the people of Adelaide appear to side with the hostage takers? It would be an affront to decent, honest, law-abiding Australians like you and me who are currently proud to call this city their home. Should this motion pass, it would be divisive and unhelpful, causing fear, anxiety, pain and suspicion in much of the regular Adelaide community, while doing nothing to actually help the people of Gaza. Moreover, it would drive home a dark and hateful message to the Jewish community in Adelaide and to the wider Jewish community in Australia. Namely, that the City of Adelaide doesn't care for you, your people, or your hostages, and doesn't really care if you don't even feel safe as Jews on the streets of your hometown. May I continue due to the interruption? I only have a few seconds. It would be a truly dark day for South Australia, an indelible stain on Adelaide, and would mark this Australian capital city with an eternal stamp of shame in full view of the rest of the civilised world. I urge you to vote against this motion.
Can I thank... Thank you. Can I thank, please, can I thank all the speakers? It takes extreme courage to come and speak at a council meeting. Thank you for your words. I call out just one more request for Miss Connie Benares. She's not here, so we'll move on to the next item. As I said, I was going to seek leave of the meeting to bring on the items under debate, and that's 17.4 and 17.5. Leave sought. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. So we'll now move on to the item that is in our papers, which was a motion on notice from Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Councillor, you have the floor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll move the motion as varied. If members want to have a look at the screens or their emails, which are circulated earlier this afternoon, and I do seek a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Ho. Lord Mayor, it is not my intention to divide the community. It's my intention to unite it. And given that we have heard from a number of speakers expressing their, I guess, their views and what they've experienced, it does make us realise and appreciate that Australia is a safe country, and we are blessed to be in such a place where you are able to express opinions without consequences. Now, for me, the countries that I used to call home prior to Australia are not like that. And I count my lucky stars every day, Lord Mayor, and I'm so grateful for the decision that my parents made 26 years ago and migrated here to Australia. Unfortunately, what we see in some of these international conflicts, they have significant impact to our local communities. I wouldn't have brought this motion into the chamber if I didn't feel that our local communities weren't impacted. When we look at some of these international conflicts, Lord Mayor, some of the recent conflicts that come to mind, be it Russia and Ukraine, be it what happened in Afghanistan with the Taliban taking over, be it what happened in Iran with the Iranian government killing its own people, that all has an impact here locally. And on every single conflict that I just named off the top of my head, this chamber, be it the current council or the previous council, has taken a position to support the local community. All I'm asking here, members, Lord Mayor, all I'm asking here through this motion is for us as a council to stand up for the community, to bring about equality, sympathise with both communities that have been affected as a result of this conflict, and also, at an appropriate time, bring about some unity at an appropriate time. Now, the community feedback has been something that's been captured in a particular petition. I know that petition is not within our agendas this evening, I have approximately over 2,000 people that have signed a petition that have essentially supported this motion. And when you look at some of the names on that petition, this is not just coming from the Arab community, the Muslim community, or the Middle Eastern community. This is the broader South Australian community. And it takes me back to the reason why I bring such a motion to the chamber, because it all comes down to the people and it all comes down to our local communities. Now, Lord Mayor, we have rightly sympathised with the people of Israel, given the attack that happened in October. We have. But what I'm asking for here is, given the news and what is happening over in the Middle East, for us to bring about some equality, for us to sympathise with the Palestinian people, not a particular cohort, not a particular group, the Palestinian people, and not to exclude them. Bring about equality, sympathise with them, and do not exclude them. Now, members, you heard about the hurt that's happening in the community now, on all sides, and there is some healing that's yet to take place. And I'm hoping that by the council being part of a, contributing to the efforts of some sort of a community gathering or a vigil, we're able to facilitate that healing and we're able to facilitate that unity. Members, I urge you to support this motion, and I do bring this motion back to what it's all about, and that is that it's about the people, it's about humanity. Please do not politicise it. Please do not look at it through a particular culture or religion. Please help me in providing equality, sympathy and unity to the community.
Thank you, Councillor. Just as a matter of clarification, could I just ask for some assistance? I'm not sure that the United Nations resolution actually mentioned the release of hostages, and I think that was the issue. I think that sentence may need perhaps some reconstruction. I don't wish to tamper with your view, but I'm really delighted that you've mentioned the hostages. I think that's a good amendment, but
sure,
I'm just worried about the structure of that sentence.
Of course, Lord Mayor, and I'm happy to be guided by your governance, but the reason why I brought about that variation was I consulted with members of the community, the broader community, and I did consult with a number of council colleagues, and that was one of the suggestions that was made to me. So in order to try and get a win for the community, I did incorporate that in the motion. So I'm happy to take guidance from your governance around the structure of the sentence.
I hate to craft your motion from the chair, but perhaps it should be to adopt an, not the, because the one that was there before, would that cover it? An, or a United Nations resolution calling for a truce, stopping any further bloodshed.
Happy to take that on board, Lord Mayor.
Would that be not too cheeky if you can accept that
That's
variation?
fine,
Your
thank you.
seconder, Councillor Ho, happy with that? Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, your seconder, Councillor Ho, did you want to speak? Councillor Noon was next, and then Councillor Siebentrit.
I have submitted amendments to most of the points which I've sent through. And I'm moving my amendments. I need a seconder.
I think that lapses for want of a seconder, Councillor.
How disappointing.
Lord Mayor, can I just ask a question around procedure? So if that does not move forward, is there an opportunity for further amendments to be put forward for consideration of the chamber?
Technically, we should only have 2 amendments. I realise that if there's going to be a lot of crafting here, at the moment the motion before the chamber is as varied as an original motion by Councillor Abrahimzadeh. The only way we can take more amendments would be if we either took it in parts or we went and came out of meetings and went into an informal stage. It's up to the decision of council whether you would want to move into informal proceedings.
Can I speak to my amendments?
I think your amendment doesn't have a seconder. So if you're going to speak, you'll be speaking to the motion.
Can I speak in general?
If you're happy to speak in general, but that will stop you moving another. I'm just trying to keep us on track, Councillor.
Can I move my amendments in parts?
You haven't got a seconder, Councillor.
Not even for any, like the first one, the second
I think
one in
not.
particular?
I'm just, Lord Mayor, because the amendments are so dense, I think there may be elements of the amendments that people want to second without seconding all of them. I'm happy to second number. I just can't read it from here because my eyes.
I really think if we're going to have multiple amendments, we're going to have to move into an informal session because this is going to be too complicated.
Point of order, Lord Mayor. I think if there's no seconder, we move back to the motion, and if there's any amendments required from that,
I'm just trying to determine whether Councillor Giles is seconding it or asking. Can you just clarify what you are speaking to?
I think Councillor Couros' suggestion is a good one. I think if we move back to the substantive motion, we can amend that one. It's just that.
I'm sorry, I can't quite hear what you're saying.
Oh, sorry. I suggest we move to the substantive motion and amend the substantive motion instead of dealing with these amendments.
Otherwise, Lord Mayor, this requires a seconder if anyone wants to amend the amendment.
Because otherwise we won't be able to manage the difficulty of the competing views. So I think that let's look at, shall we move part, would it be convenient for you to, or acceptable to you if we took it in parts? I'm sorry, it's quite difficult to manage such an emotive and competing set of values. So shall we look at part one first?
Lord Mayor, can I propose an amendment to part one?
I'm just trying to work out how we're going to get through the number of amendments. Can we just have an adjournment for a second while I take advice? Because I think there are going to be too many amendments here to be possible to get through the meeting procedures unless we adjourn our standing. I think there is a challenge here because Councillor Noon has multiple amendments, and if she moves them en bloc, she can do that, but then there's only one amendment after that. So at the moment, her amendment does not have a seconder, so does not stand. But we can move on, and we still have the capacity for 2 live amendments. Let's look at item 1 first. Councillor. I think we're still in normal meeting procedures at the moment. It's just I'm trying to be fair to everyone, and I realise there's a competing view. I could take it en bloc and make people vote for and against it, but I don't think that's the will of the meeting. Okay. So would people... Unfortunately, they would have to speak on all parts if we... I'm sorry? But Councillor Noon, you still had the call because you were the next person speaking. So do you wish to speak?
I wish to speak to my amendments.
Well, your amendment is not live. I'm sorry, no one has seconded it. You have to speak to the motion.
Part.
You can't do that. It has to be one amendment.
When we get to them.
I'm sorry. Yes, please. I'm sorry you can't do that, Councillor.
So if we take the motion in parts, even though it'll be taken in 5 parts, we can only move 2 amendments to those 5 parts. Does that make sense? So, Councillor Noon, your amendment doesn't stand for want of a lapse of a seconder, but you're not able to take it in parts and go, I want an amendment for point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4. That's because we've only got 2 amendments that we're allowed in this motion.
So, without a seconder, it's not a live amendment. I think we'll move on to Councillor Siebentritt because he might have a seconder.
Lord Mayor, I'm going to hold off because mine was primarily in relation to part 3, so I'll hold off until then.
So, members, it is a very tricky set of motions, so let's move back to Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Would you be happy to move part 1? So, members, can I ask if there is any... with your agreement, then, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you. Part 2, which is slightly amended.
Lord Mayor, can I ask a division to be called on each part, please?
Of course you may. Let's go back. A division has been called. All those in favour?
Members, please stand until your name has been called in relation to part 1 of the motion of 17.4 on your agenda. Until your name has been called, Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Ho, Councillor Kouros, Councillor Lee, Councillor Siebentritt, Councillor Giles and Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Thank you.
Part 2. Councillor Noon.
I have an amendment.
Please.
Right, my amendment is, look, I submitted this amendment because, in particular, point 2, I believe was incomplete.
Can I just ask if you're going to replace the whole of part 2?
My amendment is quite varied. My amendment calls on the federal government to support humanitarian truce, which includes pushing for a 2-sided ceasefire, an immediate, continuous, sufficient and unhindered provision of aid for civilians trapped inside Gaza, and an immediate and unconditional release of all civilians who have been illegally held captive by the Hamas militants since October 7th, 2023. That is my amendment. And I say this because I believe that the motion that's been put forward...
I'm sorry? I'm waiting to find if there's a seconder. Councillor Elliott, second.
I do this because I believe that the original motion was incomplete. I wanted to spell out more and give more clarification to what a humanitarian truce really means. I do acknowledge that late this afternoon, Council Abrahimzadeh did send through a variation, very late, which at least now includes the release of the hostages. However, amidst calling out the terrorist group Hamas, calling for a 2-sided ceasefire and also the aid for civilians trapped inside Gaza, including the 30 beautiful babies that need to be moved. I really feel strongly about this motion, this amendment, because I think we need to actually really spell it out, provide clarification to the many, many people that have emailed me, texted me, who are a bit suspicious on the motion that was actually put forward originally. And I think that my clarification of this, or spelling out this, really does clarify it. And I have received a few text messages from ratepayers about a poll of Adelaide Now, which is saying 80% of people oppose the lighting of the town hall, but we'll get to that point a bit later.
Councillor Elliott, do you want to speak?
I reserve my right.
Reserve your right. Is anybody speaking against this motion? Not Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Lord Mayor, can I just get some clarity around the wording here? Is this wording the wording that was used in the UN resolution, or I'm just missing the context here? Just don't know where that wording has come from, whether if there's background or more information on this.
I don't like it when I can't see. This is a question to the proposer.
We're not the UN. However, the UN Australia actually did not support the UN resolution because that was also incomplete, I believe. But I'm not close to this, but I actually believe that it was because they did not actually talk about the hostages, did not talk about Hamas. But at the end of the day, I actually feel that this is really important. I do actually thank you for actually adding this to your motion, which I've debated with many, many people who have rang me and emailed me and texted me over the last week since I've put up my amendment. So I'm glad that that was included.
Can you just answer the question, because otherwise you're speaking in closing the debate?
Well, like I said, we're not the UN, and the UN resolution was incomplete, and that is why we didn't support the UN resolution, and that's why I'm not supporting your motion, and I'm putting up the amendment.
Can I just go back to the call that went around the room? Councillor Siebentrit, did you wish to speak to this amendment or your own amendment? No? Okay. So Councillor Elliott is reserving his right. Councillor Kouros.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to hear your interpretation. Are the two calling for the same thing, and are we arguing on the same point? Because I feel that that's what we basically are doing, just different words are being used. And is, in your view, is that what we are seeing before us? I've got nowhere else to call. I could ask administration, but this is not an administrative
I think
comment.
it's beyond our remit to get into federal government decision-making at the UN, to be frank. My personal view is it's beyond our powers. We can write to anybody we like, but I don't think that they will think our view relevant.
Well, in saying that, Lord Mayor, I think the two are calling for the same thing. One is just worded more, and I will stick with the original motion as it's calling for the same thing. Thank you.
You're speaking now, not asking questions. Councillor.
Lord Mayor, can I just ask a question, not necessarily in relation to this, but we have one of the people that was meant to make a deputation who has arrived now. I'm not sure whether if there is a possibility to have them heard or not. I just thought I'll flag that with you, and I'm happy for us to come back to that.
My view is that she's probably lost the chance now. I don't know how our standing orders stand, but
Thank you.
I think that we've had some very powerful deputies, and I commend them for their courage in speaking, but we can't keep taking people out of order.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I appreciate it. Lord Mayor, I will speak briefly on this. I think I thank the mover for the amendment. And I agree with it that we're not UN, and I also agree with you in terms of the language that we use and what we're sending up to the federal government, so on and so forth. This is not our remit. It is not, and that's the reason why I made that the second part of my motion simple and to the point. What members need to take into account is that this is a conflict that's been going on for a long time. And for us to try and understand the complexities, try and understand the different layers, and try and pick it apart, members, I can tell you now, this will become, before you know it, with these sorts of amendments, this will become a tit for tat. That's what it will become. So I tried, and I made it very clear, and I hope I did in my opening statement around the language that I used and the intention. And the second part here is simply essentially a simplified version of what my understanding was the UN resolution to be. So, as I said, when you start to go into the detail, when you start to unpack it, be mindful that you're unpacking history and the conflict that has been going on for decades. I won't be supporting this amendment. I'll be supporting the original purely because I know when you start to take the layers off, you'll be running into trouble. So I won't be supporting this, and I urge the members not to support this.
Thank you. I'm sorry? Councillor Noon, do you want to sum up?
I just want to say that I have put this amendment because I've been asked for clarification on the motion that was put forward so that it is really clear what the intentions are. And the motion as it is, there could be, people could read into things that isn't actually there. So I have actually put more words to this to ensure that there is more clarification over this particular point 2, and I really do want to call out the terrorist group Hamas for the hostages, and I think that just saying hostages is just a bit weak and pathetic, to tell you the truth.
So I'll put that to the chamber. All those in favour? 1, 2, 3, 4. And against? Against, that's a tied vote. Do we want a division? In that case, I will vote against that motion. Division, did you say?
Division has been called. Members, please stand in favour of the amendment for part 2 of this motion until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Ho and Councillor Giles. Thank you. Oh, sorry, not Councillor Ho, Councillor Lee. My apologies.
I'm sorry? I'm sorry, I thought we'd casted a vote already. Oh, sorry. Now we'll go back to the motion as printed. Moved. All those in favour? And those against? That's carried.
Division, Lord Mayor.
A division has been called.
Members, please stand in favour of the motion in relation to part 2 until your name has been called. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Ho, Councillor Kouros, Councillor Siebentrip, Councillor Giles and Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Thank you.
Part 3, are there any other... Councillor Siebentrip?
I did have an amendment to part 3 which I'd like to propose, and then if I may speak to it, Lord Mayor. So at the moment, where it says the request from Council Administration, as we did for Israel, to light up the Adelaide Town Hall in Palestinian colours, the amendment is request from Council Administration to light up the Adelaide Town Hall in the colour white. That's my amendment. I'm happy to speak to that.
Councillor Siebentrip.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Can I just first begin by thanking everyone who's come to the chamber here this evening. It's important that as council members we hear from our community around the issues that you're particularly passionate about. I'd also like to thank Councillor Abrahimzadeh in bringing forward what is clearly an important issue amongst our community, and bringing this forward, you obviously knew we'd be up for a significant debate. I know for many of you, if you listen to the radio, often they'll say the City of Adelaide should be focused on things like road, rates and planning. And yet at times there are issues that transcend beyond the bounds of our city. They transcend beyond the bounds out into other parts of Australia and internationally. And we are asked to hear the concerns of our community on issues that go beyond there. I was sitting down having dinner with my family. I'm fortunate to have 3 children. And they said, "Dad, what is going on over in Israel and Palestine? What are the issues there and how do we resolve them?" And I thought long and hard about it, and about my role and our role here within council. I see our role here is in hearing about the issue, but is not to choose sides. And I'll speak to in a moment why I've made the amendment. It is not to choose sides, but to show compassion to those who are impacted on all sides of the conflict. I see our role here as not to seek to act as diplomats and not attempt to resolve what is really a complex international dispute. I see our role here, as I was speaking with Councillor Giles, I hope you don't mind me saying before we came out here today, is look to how do we give voice to the concepts of unity and peace within our community. The reason I've suggested this amendment is I've heard speakers on both sides talked about the impact, particularly in relation to flags. The colour white is internationally recognised as a colour for unity and peace. And I think at a time like this, it provides us with an opportunity to come together on all sides of this discussion and all sides of this chamber here to move forward, and hence I recommend this amendment to you.
Yes, and I thank Councillor Siebentritt for actually moving my amendment, which was originally to actually have the colours together on the Town Hall, but I did actually send this amendment through on Sunday to the Lord Mayor and the councillors to say, alternatively, we light up the Town Hall in white, as white is the universal colour of peace. That is why I'm wearing white tonight. There is a bit of black there, but it's mainly white. And I think that's the most important message that we can send out to our community and the world, that this is what we represent as councillors. We're not here to debate on international politics. We're here to actually talk about peace, to talk about the atrocities, to condemn the atrocities of war, to condemn the innocent lives that are lost through this. And so to light up all our monuments in white, to actually send that message out to the world is, I totally support this.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I want to thank Councillor Siebentritt for bringing this to the chamber. I understand and appreciate his perspective, but I won't be supporting this. Lord Mayor, let me tell you about my experience and how some of my experiences have shaped the way I look at things. As someone who grew up in a post 9/11 world, someone who was a teenager when the September 11th attacks took place, I was isolated. I was picked on. I was called a terrorist. I was called all sorts of things. Why? Because I was a Muslim. But what a lot of those people that called me those names did not understand is because when something happens in a particular community, you do not pick up the brush and paint everyone else with the same colour. You do not do that. What this, the way I interpret this to be, I understand that white is the colour of peace. I understand that, and if anything, this would be appropriate when we have the vigil or a community gathering to bring the community together. But what this says to me is that those colours do not necessarily represent the Palestinian people. They might represent a particular group or a particular cohort, and I'm here to tell this chamber that that's not right. That is not correct. The colours that you see, members, are the colours of the Palestinian people. They're not the colours of Hamas. They're not the colours of any other organisation. They are the colours of the Palestinian people. So I urge you not to support this, to go back to the original, because what we want to do here is we rightfully sympathise with the Israeli community by lighting up in their colours. What we need to do is bring about equality and light up for the Palestinian people. Let me bring it back to the Palestinian people, not a cohort, not another organisation. These are the colours of the Palestinian people, and I urge you to support the original motion before you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Yes, I'll be supporting this amendment, and that's why I rise to make an explanation as to why I will be. I am a very strong supporter of the Palestinian cause, and I will continue to go to rallies and support the Palestinian people, and absolutely appalled by what is going on in Gaza at the moment. However, as a councillor, I think we need to think very clearly about it. What is the role of the Adelaide City Council and the community that we represent? We are a proudly multicultural community, and we are a proudly diverse community. And in our community, we have a synagogue, we have a very wonderful, beautiful old mosque. We have people from a huge range of religions and those who have no religion at all, and people who come from a great diversity of people in the community. So our job as a council is to build compassion, to build community cohesion, unity and peace. And from hearing from people tonight, the last thing that I want to do as a council is to feed any any division between different groups in our community. And having a colour that represents the first two parts of this motion, where we've clearly said that we condemn what is going on in Gaza at the moment, that is not seen by people who weren't sitting in this council and not hearing the debate, that just see something and make their own assumptions about it, I don't think sends the correct message. If we're actually talking about peace, then let's send the message of peace. It might be starting a national movement that everyone starts talking about peace. That reflects the rest of the motion, which I support. And the other thing I want to say is that there's a lack of understanding about why the Israeli colours were put up on the town hall. And my understanding is, although I was away at the time, my understanding is the federal government sometimes tells us that we have to do something, and so does the state government. It's a national decision. We did not make a decision to put the Israeli colours on town hall here in this chamber. We actually were doing something that was requested from the federal government. This is our decision, and our decision, I hope, will be one that supports peace. And we have our different views in the chamber about how strongly or not we support particular elements of what's going on in the Middle East. I know what my particular views are, but I will be supporting a call for peace, and white is a symbol of peace. Let's call for peace.
Do you have anything new to contribute? Please continue.
I can understand, Lord Mayor, why you would want to move fast through this motion, but I wasn't going to stand and speak to this amendment. But hearing what Councillor...
Don't think you need to reflect on my motives, Councillor. Just
Sorry,
speak
Lord
to the
Mayor,
motion, please.
I believe that why I am standing up and to speak against this amendment is what Councillor Giles said, is that, it's going to, the division. This is going to stop a division, and I believe that putting it in white, lighting up the town hall in white, is actually going to cause a division. What you are asking for, you're asking for the Palestinian people to be heard on their loss, and I am truly, truly, truly on both parts. This is a terrible thing that's happening in the world, and we are in pain for both communities. Yes, we are a multicultural community. We should be respectful of all our cultures within the city of Adelaide, and I am so grateful, that I live in a country where I am safe and my family is safe. But both parts of these communities are hurting, and I feel for you both. But the Palestinian people just want to be heard. They want the acknowledgement of their family, of their families' lives that are being lost in their country. I am not here as a United Nations representative. I am not here as a state government representative. I am here as a local member from my multicultural community. And what this does, Lord Mayor, this highlights how much of a multicultural community we have in the city of Adelaide. And we need to be respectful to both. And by saying and turning around and saying that we are not acknowledging you, we are going to light up the town hall in white, you are dividing this community, and you are not acknowledging the communities that are in pain. We have acknowledged the Israeli community, and we will continue to do so, and we need to acknowledge them both.
Thank you.
Can I remind those in the gallery not to disrupt the meeting? Thank you.
Lord Mayor, thank you. Well, I do not support the amendment, and the main reason that why I do not support the amendment is because it's timing. If the proposal was put forward before us, before we line up for Israel, I would have been willing to support it. However, the situation is now is our council have already shown support for Israel. Now I think we heard voice from other communities and understand their needs for our support in fairness. I urge everyone not to support the amendment, but support Councillor Abrahamson's original motion. As you know, I'm an Australian with Chinese heritage who have just been here for over 2 decades. Like many others from the minority community, what concerns us most is fairness. We do not wish to be treated as second-class citizens, regardless of what happens. We hope that our government treats us equally at all times and does not ignore our value and contributions to the general community. We also do not want to be treated differently after generations of efforts. In October 2021, before a Mid-Autumn Festival dinner, I spoke with the Premier, Peter Manalaskis, during the time when China-Australia relationship were tense. Comments from Peter Dutton had caused deep concerns within the local Chinese community, fearing differential treatments and lack of recognition and support from mainstream societies. My apologies. Despite our contributions, this will affect not only us, but also our future generations. At that time, same as the gentleman who came here to do his deputation, I was also seriously consider my life, my future in Adelaide. And are we still welcome? Are we still part of the community? I raised those concerns to the Premier. During that dinner, Premier Peter Manalaskis made a very friendly and important speech addressing our concerns. He joined me in meetings our community members at each table, offering them encouragement and confidence, and that was very, very important to all of us. Therefore, after seeing Councillor Abrahamson's motion and received many emails and calls from the community, from the bottom of my heart, I feel that the concerns and worries of our local Arabian and Muslim communities. What we need to clarify that is we can do very little about the situation in Gaza, no matter what decision we make in this chamber. But what we truly need is to take care of other people from the minority groups in Adelaide. They are Australian citizens and part of our community. Councillor Abrahamson's motion is simply to give those local community members a sign, a bit of support, a bit of recognition that they are still part of the community. Members, from the first second I stepped on Australian land, I was told multiculturalism is what makes us strong. Multiculturalism is the backbone of this country. If you still believe that is the case, could you please show your support and treat all community groups with fairness? Thank you.
Can those in the gallery also remember not to flash lights and cameras at us, because it's quite distracting. So if you could just be quiet, please, and not flash lights. Councillor Siebentrit, you've summed up. Councillor Lee.
I mean, I wasn't going to speak, but I thought I will, since I've heard both side arguments. I think we've all received many calls and emails in the past 48 hours. And I believe it probably takes a person from multicultural background or persons like Adriana who works in the multicultural space to appreciate and relate to some of the sentiments. I acknowledge that a lot of things said in the chamber, and I agree with them. We've condemned terrorism, all forms of terrorism, and we've called for the release of hostage. But as time goes on, 6 weeks later, there is an important piece of information come on board, and I believe we could not neglect that piece of information, is that 11,000 people, innocent people, have died, including 5,000 women and children. So I believe that there's no disagreement in the motions largely, but I will speak against this amendment because of the timing, as Councillor Ho said. We've already shown support and solidarity to the Israel community for whatever reason, whether it's been told by the federal government or for any other reason. We've showed that support. And we believe that we should show support to the Palestinian community as well, to give them a fair go, to give them that voice they deserve. And I like Councillor Nong's motion. If we were doing it for the third time, if there is a third time that we were to celebrate a ceasefire, then, and a vigil, then I think we can light it in white or a mixed color or whichever way. But for this time, I think we should give a fair go, a voice to the Palestinian community by illuminating the council building into their colors. Thank you.
I think we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's a tied vote. I'll vote in favour of the motion. I beg your pardon?
Division.
Division has been called.
Members, please stand in favour of the motion for part 3. Until your name has been called. For the amendment, Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Stephen-Tripp, Councillor Giles and the Lord Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. We've now had 2 amendments, and as I explained, we only have the capacity for that. So could I ask if Councillor Abrahimzadeh would like to move 4 and 5 in block? And I don't know if you'd like to debate them again, close the debate. If not, I'll put 4 and 5 together. All those in favour? All those against? A division has been called.
Lord Mayor, can I just make a clarification regarding this? Because part 4 refers to lighting up Adelaide landmark buildings in the Palestinian colours, and yet the preceding one refers to white. Is there any conflict there?
I think they're not in conflict. I put my mind to this, and I should have mentioned something earlier. I think what it's implying is that as an act of solidarity, there might be lighting up of buildings across Adelaide. So I think that for all the heated debate on number 3, actually one is getting a bob each way with number 4.
It's a contradictory, Lord Mayor. It's a contradictory, Lord Mayor. We're saying white, but we're asking the state government to do Palestine colours. So we actually are in contradiction.
Interpretation is that this is not ultra vires, and it is possible to vote for both. It's possible to maintain both ideas in your brain.
But it is a contradiction.
Well, in that case, don't vote for it, Councillor.
Can we take 4 and 5 in parts? Separately.
We've already moved them in block. I'm sorry. I misunderstood the intent of the meeting. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. A division has been called.
Members, a division has been called on part 4 and 5. Please stand in favour of the motion until your name has been called. Councillor Ho, Councillor Kouros, Councillor Lee, Councillor Stephen-Tripp, Councillor Giles and Councillor Abrahimzadeh. Thank you.
Thank members for their debate on that issue. I apologise. I made an error earlier on in the meeting. The amendment for Part 3 became the motion, but I now have to move it as the motion, a substantive motion. I apologise for that misstep. Could I take item 3? All those in favour? It becomes the motion. You wish to debate it again?
Just to be clear, it's the substantive that we're
The
now,
substantive, yes. The amendment has become the motion. I apologise. And it's now the substantive motion for Part 3, which I voted for when it was a tied vote, and that became the substantive motion.
So, Lord Mayor, we can speak to it?
To say anything differently from you've said already, are you?
Would it matter?
I think it just wastes time if you're not going to say the same
So we're
thing.
wasting time on these issues that are very dear
No,
to people.
you can speak again, but we've just had the debate. Feel free.
I think, Lord Mayor, that we have to be reflective on what a contradiction that this is as a motion. We're standing up and saying we're going to light our town hall in white, yet we're going to ask the state government to light up for in Palestine colours. So I think that, as a council, I'm disappointed. As a person from the multicultural community, I'm disappointed. As a person that is from an ethnic background, I am disappointed that we're sending mixed messages to our community in that we're not saying that we stand with you. We will only stand with you if the state government does so, and we're palming it off to them. We, as a council, should be leaders in telling the state government what is the right thing to do. We should be acknowledging all of our multicultural community, and I am really disappointed that we have not done so.
I interpret that motion as saying, considering that the state government was the one following also the direction of the federal government to light up, to ask people to light up using the Israeli colours, then it's their responsibility to make the balance. Whereas here in the chamber, we have not made a decision, and so we can't. It's not contradictory to say that the Adelaide City Council supports a peaceful, coherent and unified community, and we support peace. But state government, you made that first call. Maybe it's your turn to turn around and balance the ledger.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I don't wish to debate this for too long, but I will just say this. Lord Mayor, members, we are leaders in our own right. And what leaders say and what leaders do matters. We are the ones that set the tone. So just look at the end result that we have before us. What sort of tone is that setting, and what sort of message is that sending to our community? Lord Mayor, I'm disappointed with this particular amendment. I will be voting in support of the substantive motion. Because I believe there will hopefully be some wins in there for the local community. But let me just remind this chamber of the reason why this motion is before you to start with. Let me just remind this chamber that we are here debating this because of poor leadership. Because of poor political leadership, we are here debating this. If federal government and state government had listened to the community, and if they had come in, engaged with them, and listened to them and listened to their needs, we wouldn't be here debating this. So, Lord Mayor, I'm aware of what we're about to vote for. I don't support the third point, but nevertheless, as a whole, I will vote for the motion.
So let me remind you, we're voting for the substantive on 3 only. Councillor Ho. Councillor Ho first.
Just a question, Lord Mayor. I'm looking at the substantive motion here compared with what Councillor Nguyen was going to move, have both colours in Town Hall rather than white. Yes. Yeah. Can we actually have both colours? I can't. All right, no problem. All right.
I think that technically now Councillor Abrahams has summed up on the substantive for 3, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? I think we have a division again. Yes, please. Tie vote. Sorry. It's a tie vote, and I'll vote for the substantive motion. I'm sorry, division's been called.
Councillors, please rise in favour of the substantive motion for part 3 until your name has been called. Councillor Noon, Councillor Elliott, Councillor Siebentroop, Councillor Giles and the Lord Mayor. Thank you.
So can I apologise for the slightly untidy process in that matter? We've now completed that motion, and I want to move on next to 17.5, which is the motion on notice from Councillor Noon, I apologise, which relates to this matter, so I think we should carry through this motion now. Councillor Noon, would you like to speak to this?
Can someone second it?
I'm sorry?
Does someone need to second it?
Councillor Councillor Kouros has seconded it.
I don't think I need to speak to this because I think the words to my motion says it all. Thank you.
So unless there are any contrary views to this, nobody wants to speak against, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? That's carried unanimously. Members, I think we've now completed the items.
Can we request a break, if that's okay?
As I suggested, we're going to now move an adjournment for 10 minutes. And that's in order for the people in the gallery to clear the gallery, because I imagine they don't want to stay for the whole of our meeting, and it allows us to have a few moments respite. So all those in favour of 10 minutes, all those against, that's a 2/3 majority, so it's carried. Thank you very much, members. We now have quorum, so we will progress the meeting. We'll move on to item 10.1. Could I ask that someone moves receipt of a petition for 14 signatories, moved by Councillor Siebentrit, seconded by Councillor Noon. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you, members. The next petition is 10.2. Could I ask that someone move receipt of petition for 35 signatories, moved by Councillor Kouros, seconded by Councillor Giles. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Item 11 is recommendations from the Reconciliation Committee. Could I ask someone move Councillor Elliott, moved, seconded by Councillor Siebentrit. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Item 12. Sorry. Could I ask someone move the recommendations as printed? Councillor Giles? Are you moving them all in block?
I'll move them. Considering we had considerable debate at committee, I'll move them in block.
Seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you.
I just got an appreciation letter that I'd like to deliver to all members, and the letter is from CASA. Thank you for the multiple year funding. I just pass it on. I don't
I'm not sure what it's been.
No. It is an appreciation letter from CASA. Thanks for Council's long-term support as well as the multiple year funding support.
Thank you. We'll accept.
I just pass it on.
Okay, because that arises out of this, yeah.
Take it on block or individually?
I would take it on block because
on block, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Unless there's any debate, all those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Can I just ask you to vote again? We didn't see the hands. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. The next item is my report. I just wanted to speak tonight about the Harvest Rock Festival. I visited on Saturday the 28th of October. It was a weekend that was extremely busy. There was the Adelaide Film Festival, Ozasia, Sam Smith and the Bridgestone Solar Challenge, so I understand very few members got to visit Harvest Rock. I have to say the multiple amenity areas and installations were meticulously presented to the extent that previously denuded patches of lawn and bitumen roads were masked by astroturf to present a continuous green surface, and every detail was curated to the highest degree. You'll appreciate I've been behind the scenes at dozens of diverse events and festivals, but have never seen facilities for crew and performers tidier or more aesthetically designed. It was incomparable on many levels. But I especially want to make mention of the Quentin Kenihan accessible play area, which had been a point of discussion in Council and Cadatilla for this event, as well as being within the Velo 500 prescribed area. As you know, many members were distressed by the thought of that playground being closed off and not available to the public. Having made the operators of Harvest Rock aware of the concerns expressed regarding the space being fenced off, I was extremely impressed by their response in making the area fully accessible for non-attending families who could enter from the outside of the event. More amazingly, Harvest Rock actually hosted a comprehensive schedule of entertainment and events for families in the playground that were freely accessible to community members coming in as well as event patrons going out. This worked by allowing a security staff member to be posted on the internal gate to check the credentials of those leaving the playground and entering the actual event. I commend the organisers for their collaborative, creative and imaginative response to our concerns, and I look forward to working with them in the future. At the Town Hall, there are full-on preparations to mark the 50th anniversary of the Georgetown-Adelaide Sister City relationship, and I hope that now invitations have gone to councillors with the itineraries for available events that you may wish to attend. The schedule extends from the 3rd to the 8th of December 2023, and councillors should also note that we've been invited to attend a return trip in April of next year within the 50th year as part of the ongoing celebrations. Another matter of note that I've learnt of in the news is that the City of Adelaide has been named in the top 13% of cities globally for action on climate change. The Carbon Disclosure Project Cities A-list named Adelaide among 119 cities, including Sydney, Melbourne, New York and San Francisco. The CDP, as it's called, is a global not-for-profit that lets companies and cities disclose information. Can I seek leave for a slightly longer leave sort? Thank you. The CDP is a global not-for-profit that lets companies and cities disclose information about their responses to climate change, water security and deforestation. Cities that score an A have a climate action plan, goals for tackling climate hazards and have completed a climate risk and vulnerability assessment. It's great news that our city has achieved this standard, and it vindicates the hard work of our staff. And I'd like to congratulate everyone involved in making this possible, so thank you. Would someone move noting my report? Moved by Councillor Giles, seconded by Councillor Abrahimzadeh. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you. Now, we're on to 17.1. Councillor Davis is unable to attend. Oh, I'm sorry. Were there any other reports? Councillor Abrahimzadeh.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I would just like to make a mention of the council staff's immense efforts in being a part of the National Pharmacy's Christmas pageant. Some members may have attended that pageant. I certainly did with my family, and I asked for a bit of a breakdown or a bit of a some information and background around what it takes for that pageant to come to life. And I have been given paragraphs and paragraphs of information about the number of people, the teams that are involved in this. Anything and everything from city events to infrastructure maintenance to on-street parking, the personnel in your office, Lord Mayor, and just some of the some of the statistics in terms of over 1,000 parking control signs being changed for the event. As you walk through the city, certain parts of the city like Flinders Street might look empty because there are no cars. But when you look at those parking signs, you will notice that every single one of them has been changed. The effort that our council staff go in order to ensure that we have a safe and a viable event is just beyond me, and I wanted to acknowledge their hard work in bringing that pageant, or being a part of a team that brings that pageant together every single year. So I really wanted to acknowledge their hard work in all of that.
I just want to say that I emceed and facilitated a forum last night regarding a motion that I put forward a few months ago to work with the Office of Small and Family Business and the Minister on the strategy that they had actually released probably about 6 months ago. We had quite a few small and family businesses in the room. It was a robust conversation. I think it's the first of many, but it was a really fabulous gathering, and we were able to hear and share their pain points, and also the Minister was able to actually really articulate what the strategy is all about. I also went to the pageant and concur with Councillor Abrahimzadeh, And I just think that our decorations in the city are fantastic. And if we had to spend money on anything else, we should spend it on the homelessness and not upgrading decorations. Thank you.
Unless there are any other reports, I ask that those two reports be received. Moved by Councillor Giles, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. We'll move on to the motions on notice. We will withdraw 17.1 and put it on the next meeting agenda. 17.2, Councillor Kouros, outdoor dining.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, can I just clarify 17.1? Does that need to be removed from the council agenda, or I know that was Councillor Davis's motion?
I think it is respectful to let them move it again at a subsequent meeting.
Okay. Okay.
I put my mind to the details of whether this was actually ultra vires. Because the caravan has somewhat moved on. If you look at the back page, there have been multiple decisions. And if it's not ultra vires, because we can, of course, write to whoever we want, it does seem pointless. So 17.2, Councillor Kouros.
I move it as printed. Do I have a seconder? Because I do want to vary it slightly.
I'm sorry, I can't quite hear you. You want
Can
to
I vary it? I just want to change it from 3 months to 6 months.
Could you tell us how you're going to vary it?
Just from 3 months to 6 months.
Thank you. So we'll accept that motion as varied, and it's...
Not yet. I'll tell you why.
Sorry? Is there a seconder? Councillor Abrahimzadeh, thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Abrahimzadeh. The reason for this motion is based on the petition that is included in the agenda. It's for a North Adelaide business. This North Adelaide business runs a florist shop, and with the florist shop, she has a secondary part of a business, which is just coffee and cake. Because of the impact of running the business and the impact, according to the shop owners, of the outdoor dining fees and the extra costs in doing so, they decided to remove the outdoor dining from their business and only keep the florist and the cafe because it wasn't the core of their business. They started the petition as a way of trying to get their voices heard on the impact that it has on their very small business. And in the end, they've decided to actually take that away. They couldn't sustain it any further. So my concerns are, Lord Mayor, and my concerns are for North Adelaide, is that I'm getting, in the north, I'm getting a lot of businesses coming to me, small businesses, not substantial businesses, small businesses, that this outdoor dining fee, the blinds and all of these extra fees that we have included in our budget are impacting them. What I'm asking is we have a single point of contact, and the single point of contact on Melbourne Street and O'Connell Street, I would like them to survey the hospitality business and find out the actual impact that it is having on them. Now, I understand that there is a variation or an amendment to this motion. I have centred it basically on the North Ward. I have not, I would like to hear from our Central Ward councillors if they're getting the same response. And if they are, I'm open and to any discussions that it is to amend it. If you would like the survey to be conducted in the Central Ward as well, I'm happy for that. But this, at the moment, is about what I'm experiencing in the north. And I am very afraid, Lord Mayor, with the looming costs of doing business, with the costs of interest rates going up, and the fact that 75% of our rates come from commercial enterprise, we need to be forward-thinking and understanding what is our community suffering at the moment and what other levers that we can pull to help support them. And that's what I'm looking for in tonight's meeting. Thank you.
I'll get your seconder to speak. Could we just put one word in, bring a report back for consideration in no later than... It would be nice if they were in. Just to make it tidier English, could we just do that? I'm sorry to just fiddle. Thank you. Seconder, sorry. Reserved your right, Councillor I think Councillor Noon was wishing to speak first, and then Councillor Elliott.
I have amendments. I'm the amendment girl tonight. I just want to say, I wish to remind councillors that a council meeting in April.
Have we a seconder?
Oh, seconder, thank you.
Councillor Ho.
Yes, in April this year, I put up a motion that did not support the reintroduction of outdoor dining fees that had been ceased prior to COVID, or the increase in car park fees. It wasn't as if I was actually against reintroducing a fee. It was that I wanted to take this year to explore and to work with restaurateurs and business owners on a more the most fair and equitable model that could be adopted. Only two other councillors supported, being Councillor Ho and Davis. There was another motion from Councillor Abrahimzadeh, which I seconded, and we were going to slowly introduce the fees, and that was not supported either. However, the motion that did get up was the one about the reintroduction from fees from 1st of October this year. That was just over a month ago. So doing a survey now will waste resources, in my opinion, and give us little information. However, I do support this in principle, however, not now. So by conducting one after the end of March, we might be better informed on what the situation really is. I want to not only explore this in North Adelaide, but also the broader city, because I am also getting a whole lot of comments. I've got it for, since I've actually been elected on council about outdoor dining fees and car park fees. So I actually would like to look at it around that time rather than now. They're going into a really sort of busy period. I actually think that there's better models. I've spoken to a lot of restaurateurs about different models, looking at seasonal options, looking at small and medium and large businesses. The question I would like to actually ask administration is, I actually believe that there are invoices that have been sent to permit holders, and how many have actually paid, and has there been any backlash?
I think that's quite a difficult question.
Yeah, and I'm happy to have
notice.
that.
Can I just ask, I'm sorry to speak from the chair, I'll just pause your minutes here. Can you just explain what this means? Because I must be a bit slow-witted. I don't know what a linear tax is.
I actually asked that question because when I was talking to people, they were talking about a blind tax. And so I asked what that actually meant, and it actually means fixtures. Is that sort of more about
I just think we've got to be careful with the wording, because the motion has to be unambiguous and capable of being enacted. So what is a linear tax?
I was actually told that it was to do with fixtures, but I'm quite happy to be fixtures.
What is a linear tax?
It's another tax on top of the dining fees.
Thank you. Through the chair, there are fees also for other items that a hospitality business might place in the public realm. It's a fee. I wouldn't call it a linear tax. So perhaps to help the mover and in brackets, and other fees associated with running hospitality businesses. Perhaps something along those lines might provide more clarity.
Sorry, I'm happy to change that to...
So can I, thank you, having tidied up that, can we just go down to the levy models? What do you mean by a levy model?
Or fee models.
Sorry?
This is the sort of, language that people have talked to me
I know,
about.
but we
but
need...
maybe it's fee models. I don't know, dining fee models. I mean, basically, at the discussion I've had with quite a few people is... it's...
Councillor, I don't wish to interrupt when you're in full flood, but I have to say it's a bit difficult to survey the public about models when we're not sure what they are. Can I just, without wishing to lead you from the chair, would it be possible to have a report brought back to council on other funding or other fee systems?
Yep, that's fine. Happy with that.
I think that I don't wish to craft it too much. Councillor Ho.
Yeah, because I actually got two questions about the amendment. One is about the linear text, and the other one is about the levy model as well. And since the mover is kind of still unclear about that, I actually like to withdraw my seconder.
So you wish? I don't. So we have to seek permission to withdraw the seconding. How do we do that? I've never done that before. This is a new experience for me. How do I do this?
What happens if I put funding models or fee models? No, but that is actually
very exciting. We've never done this before. You can withdraw it, but then I have to see if there's another seconder. Councillor Elliott has seconded. Okay, let's go back to the problems with the wording.
I think there's always an opportunity to change wording.
I'm just trying to edit. I'm trying to help you, Councillor, without wishing to interfere too much. Could we ask for number 2? Ask for a report on potential fee structures for outdoor dining. Is that the idea that we're asking for?
Yes, that's exactly. I was given this by people who are sort of dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, so I'm only sort of putting down what I was actually told. But if there's more correct wording, I'm quite happy to take that on board.
The only reason I'm saying that is I don't think it's possible for the administration to conduct a survey without knowing what they're conducting it about. And
it's funding, whatever you want to call it, fee models, funding models, whatever it is. It's outdoor dining. Does Councillor Couros like a drink of water, maybe?
Sorry? Thank you.
At the end of the day, I think there is other outdoor dining fee models that need to be explored. Because what I'm actually hearing from a lot of, restaurateurs and hoteliers that basically, especially small cafes, they're being charged the same fees as hotels, and there could be different ways of looking at this.
I'm just seeking advice about the degree of change of the amendment. I'm sorry, I just want to check that this hasn't strayed too far to be an amendment. It looks like it is a new motion to me. I'm sorry, I just want to get some advice. I think the advice is that it's sufficient. I'm sorry, Councillor Moon. I think the advice I'm getting is that it's sufficiently different from the original to be beyond an amendment. I'm sorry to say this. I'm open to, in the motions without notice, having a report brought forward on the potential fee structures and the other part, because that's separate. But I think we have to leave Councillor Couros' motion as it is. I'm sorry, I just don't think we can manage it.
So we can't make an amendment to Councillor Couros' motion?
You can make the... you can amend part 1.
Well, I'm
just trying to make sure this is legitimate, and it's straying a little bit. It does seem to me that part 1 is an amendment. So, okay, part 1 we agree is an amendment, but not 2 and 3. Okay, I'm sorry to just take you down that path. I just had to sort that out.
Lord Mayor, can I offer a suggestion for...
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. 2 and 3 kind of seem quite similar between the two motions. I'm not going to contest the advice of the administration. That's not my intent at all. But would you mind scrolling down just a little? Thank you. There is a degree of consistency for me between the 2 point 3s, where we could simply change the timeline in the original motion, point 3, to tie into the budget, business plan and budget discussions. So basically taking the last line of the proposed amendment, point 3. Yeah, well, the budget is going to be accepted in August, so it's about 8 months away, actually. It's further down the track, but basically aligning...
I think I need some help here because it's becoming untidy.
Sorry, I'm not making very much sense.
Thank you through the
this
chair.
Problem for me.
Perhaps, can you just scroll back up, Kylie, please? My understanding from Councillor Couros' motion is that the intent around the 3 or 6 month mark was that there would be survey data to help inform the fees and charges component of the 24-25 business plan and budget. Those fees and charges are usually starting to be discussed with Council during March, April, with a draft budget out for consultation at the end of April and final budget considerations in June. So I think the intent of the first motion is to inform next year's business plan and budget, but if it's helpful for clarity, for point 3, no later than 6 months to coincide with the building of the 24-25 business plan and budget.
Lord Mayor, can I clarify that we're not looking at continuing with what Councillor Noon proposed, but there is an opportunity still to have an amendment to part 1 of Councillor Couros' motion?
I think we can accept part 1 as an amendment, but I'm just trying to work out if we... I'm sorry, it's quite complicated getting these variations. It's not a very good way to run the meeting, I'm afraid. Okay, are you putting that up there? That's a replacement. That's.
Said I've gone too far.
I'm sorry. We'll just have to.
Thank you, through the chair. The advice from governance to the Lord Mayor previously was that some of those parts in Councillor Noon's amendments were straying too far from the intent of Councillor Couros' motion, which is why the Lord Mayor ruled that way. I think the bit that could potentially contribute, which wouldn't stray too far, is an amendment to part 1 of Councillor Couros' motion to expand from North Adelaide to the city. So that would then pick up Councillor Noon's intent of doing something more broader than just North Adelaide.
Can I just say... No, that's okay. I just want to say that approximately 20% of where I refer to as the sample size of City and North Adelaide outdoor dining permit, it equates to around 150 restaurateurs, businesses, so that's a good sample size across the board. So I don't think that we need to just focus on North Adelaide. We should focus across the whole, not just North Adelaide, but City, all our ratepayers. And so I think that, and doing it after, I think it's too early to do it now. I really believe that. So I think a suitable date after March 30 is what I'm proposing. So I'm just happy with the amendment to number 1. I don't really have a problem with the others.
Move it on. If you're accepting the amendments as we've crafted them, can I just ask if anyone wants to speak against them? Councillor, in that case, can I put that amendment then? Councillor Couros. Well, I've got to put the amendment first. Sorry, Councillor Noon, the amendment. Do you wish to say anything? No. So we're now voting on the amendment first. All those in favour? All those against? That has carried. That becomes the motion, the substantive motion. So all those in favour again? Of the substantive motion, unless you want to... All those in favour and those against? That's carried. Thank you, members. I'm sorry, I thought you were voting. I'm so sorry. I apologise. No, please. I apologise.
Over the Lord Mayor.
Members, it's been a very difficult meeting. I apologise. Your motion has got up now. I'm sorry. Councillor Elliott, your Pride March motion.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I take it as read and seconder, and I believe Councillor Noon is willing to second.
Councillor Noon seconded it.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The Pride March was first held in Adelaide in 1973, making it 50 years ago of the 50th anniversary this year. And I was very proud to have marched again this year with a very large group of my friends. And I just kind of did the numbers while I was sitting here and realised it was about 10 years ago this time of year that I actually first started coming out to my family. So I only came out in my early 20s while I was in the Air Force, and I grew up with no queer person to look up to ask questions of, and always had felt deeply defensive of my sexuality. So going from being a socially isolated queer defence member to leading the Adelaide University Pride Club in my first ever Pride March in 2018, it was quite a turnaround. But it was during that time that I realised how important it was to be visible, to stake a claim in the city so that others could feel safe and confident as well. Unfortunately, like so many other queer people, I still experience homophobia in our city streets. Only a few weeks ago, shortly after leaving this building, two men shouted faggot at me from their van just outside. I've also been spat on while walking down Rundle Street. I've been alone and surrounded by a group of teen boys on bikes and threatened with assault in broad daylight. I've been surrounded and accosted by another group of drunk men in Topham Mall as I walked with friends from Hindley Street to Perry Street. I've been followed and shouted at by another pair of men in a van while I was out running one afternoon along Jeffcote Street. I tried ignoring them, but they pulled alongside me, shouted more abuse, matching my pace with their van. I ran towards the aquatic centre, so if anything happened, then at least hopefully someone might see and help. It is terrifying in many of those situations when you might be stalked, bashed, bottled, robbed or killed. And I'm sure many other members of this council can empathise with their particular experiences being queer or not. I'm not going to make assumptions. But it's never because you've done something wrong, it's because someone has singled you out and they've decided that you seem different and that they're going to make you feel uncomfortable or unsafe. Unfortunately, this violence and intimidation is so normalised we actually seek to protect it. For example, in recent weeks, I've received numerous complaints from within the queer community about the hateful signs and comments from preachers in the Rundle Mall. It's normalised and protected because it's their religious freedom to intimidate and promote intolerance and hatred. We have people in our queer community who avoid coming into the city and into the mall because they are accosted by religious zealots. But our own Rundle Mall security guidelines say that the intimidating behaviour is permissible because the threshold is the actual incitement of violence, not the threat or the intimidation itself. And then I come into this chamber, a place where I work, and I am forced to observe prayer to a God that thinks that people like me are an abomination, a prayer that calls for empathy and understanding, completely ignoring the way that prayer and religion is routinely weaponised against queer people out on our city streets. We've set a toxic tone in this place by allowing the far right of the Liberal Party on North Terrace and their lackeys to interfere with how we conduct our meetings. Just one more minute, Lord Mayor.
Seek leave. All those in favour? That's carried. Yep.
Thank
Please,
you, Lord Mayor. And so it seems, so our city streets and evidently our town hall are still not welcoming of queer people. And so it is time that we send a strong message that this council is inclusive and wants to make the city a safe and welcoming place. Committing to an ongoing City of Adelaide contingent to the Pride March will provide a space for elected members, staff, their friends and families to be confident and comfortable being a queer person in our city, on our streets, at work and in our town hall. Our participation will be an ongoing project in fostering acceptance and embracing diversity, ensuring that our city is one that is welcoming to all, and I commend the motion.
Thank you, Councillor. Would your seconder like to speak to it?
Only that I support what Councillor Elliott just said, except the prayer. Because I think we did actually come to a compromise with a multi-faith prayer. So there you go.
Unless there's any contrary view, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously, members. Thank you very much. Councillor Giles.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to move this motion. I don't have a seconder. Actually, I think Councillor Noon said said she would. Hang on, just getting it on my papers. Here it is. When I took charge of the chairing of the Community Services and Culture Committee of the Council, I was actually very surprised that we didn't seem to have a community development policy in the Council. Community development to me is fundamental to our role as a council, and most councils have some sort of clear view about about how we develop our community, what is our community going to look like, how do we engage our community, and also how do we consult our community. And I just think this is a piece of work that is missing in our planning processes. We've got a range of things in train. So I'm moving this motion so that we can have a discussion paper that really feeds into our strategic planning process around the question of community development, and really picking up the challenge that we have made for ourselves about increasing the number of people living in the city. If we have 50,000 people living in the city, we will need to operate in a much different way than we currently do to make sure those people feel like they're part of a community, they have a say in their community, and there's enough services and support for them as well. So I'm just moving this motion so we can get a discussion paper written so that we can have a think about that and the way it fits into our strategic plan. The administration comments are quite supportive of it, and so I think it's a piece of work that would be useful for us all.
Seconder? No? Unless there's a contrary view, Councillor Abrahimzadeh?
I just want to get some clarification, Lord Mayor. Do we, at the moment, do we have a community consultation policy or something along those lines?
Seek advice from the administration.
Thank you. Through the chair, we do have a community consultation policy. The intent of this motion is to consider that in the context of the review that's already been underway, but to take a more broader view just around the role of community development more broadly across the City of Adelaide. And as you can see in the admin comment, there's already various pieces of work underway to help inform the discussion paper.
Councillor Siebentritt.
So, a question through the chair for the administration is: I note in the comments here that it's approximately or an estimated to be 200 hours. Is that it says it's not currently resourced? Would that be done by staff or would that be done by an independent provider?
Through me to the CEO.
Thank you. Through the chair. I would be expecting it to be undertaken by staff, drawing on the work that's already underway, and the staff within the city community team should be able to pull a discussion paper together to help inform that piece of work.
So thank you. Unless there's a contrary view, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Are there any motions without notice? Oh yes, Councillor Giles, I'm sorry. You sent one around earlier.
Yes. I've received information. Oh, sorry, I've moved this. Can I move this motion?
Lord Mayor, can I just declare a general conflict of interest? I'm employed by the SA Housing Authority, who does work with community housing providers from time to time. I believe Salvation Army is a registered community housing provider. I don't know anything about this particular project, but just to play it safe, if it does end up on my desk, I will just declare a general conflict of interest and I'll leave the room.
I don't think there's a general conflict of interest because there isn't a project. But anyway, I'll keep going. I'm moving this motion because it was drawn to my attention that a number of people who are in the vicinity of what was known as Linsell Lodge. It's the ugly, falling down, dangerous building on the corner of Morfett and Whitmore Square on the southern side that is owned by the Salvation Army. It's been in disrepair and empty for a very long period of time, and it's a great concern to all the residents that live in that area, but also in the city generally. So a number of residents have now received a notice from McMahon Australia, which is the demolition company that intends to demolish the building. I think generally in our community there we're saying it's great that it's actually moving at last. It's good to get rid of this ugly eyesore. But what I'm concerned about is that we're not really sure what the plans are and whether or not it will just be knocked down and just be an empty space in that space, or what the plans are for redevelopment. My understanding is that the Salvation Army intends to redevelop it themselves and not sell the site. But I think it's time that we ask the Salvation Army and also McMahon Services to provide some information to the community and maybe even to the council, if we don't have that information in the council, about the future of this project. And the other reason I've done that is because there's a significant amount of asbestos in this site, and we'd want to be assured and be able to assure our community that the demolition will be done properly and safely for residents in the vicinity. So I'm moving this as an urgent one because the demolition in the letter was said to commence on the 15th of November, which is Thursday? Tomorrow? Oh, it's tomorrow. I'm moving an urgency so we can make contact with the companies urgently.
I can probably just contribute a little to this story because we have met with the Salvation Army and talked to them about their intentions, which is to master plan the whole site. I understood that they were consulting the community. They told us they were going to consult the community as part of their master planning. And when I heard they wanted to demolish, I said they had to landscape the area, so we can check up on that. I presume this motion will be passed. No one will speak against it. So shall I put it to the vote? Do you want to sum up? No? All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Thank you.
But I have a question, further question in regards to the question. I can ask that. Am I okay to ask that?
It's a question without notice, I think.
Well, it's a question regarding the question that I have on notice. I asked, can the administration advise if they believe the decision of the Civic Recognition Working Group aligned with the council decision of the 10th of March to hang. And I would like that reworded. I think Councillor Noon made a point that that wasn't worded properly. So if we could change that for the record.
Yes, I think hanging people.
Yes,
how would you like
that's
it reworded?
not the intent. The council decision to hang 6 women portraits. No, that's not the intent.
Would you like to look at the screen and tell me if that's what you want?
Yes, that's correct. I think I sent that
Thank
through.
you. That's been reworded.
Yes.
Do we need a motion for that?
And so then in regards to that
We'll just
reply,
update the documentation.
Thank you. And then in regards to that reply, I don't believe I received a real clear understanding in regards to how the administration read that decision, because according to the notes that I have before me, we have agreed to 6 female leaders we recommended be honoured by having the portraits displayed in the council chamber. So, Lord Mayor, I'm asking administration why they believe that it's only 5 when we actually agreed to 6.
I'm not responsible for the questions and answers. Thea?
Thank you, through the chair. There will be 6 portraits in the chamber.
So does that mean that the former Lord Mayor Wendy Chapman will be coming into the chamber?
No, there's still an additional portrait to be commissioned for the council chamber.
So we're asking for 6, and the 6 that we agreed on is the Wendy Chapman, Dame Roma Mitchell, Auntie Shirley, Mary Lee, Catherine Helen Spence, and Everett. I can't say that, and I don't want to be rude in saying it incorrectly. So the decision on the council is to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but that includes Wendy Chapman. So can administration advise why Wendy Chapman is not hanging in the chamber?
Thank you, through the chair. The minutes and the agenda from the Civic Recognition Working Group meeting were distributed to all council members recently via e-news that talked to the rationale of hanging former Lord Mayor Wendy Chapman's portrait along the Lord Mayoral Gallery. That has now happened, and this is a curation program and a recuration program, and further portraits are being completed, and further portraits are still to be commissioned, and they will continue to be displayed here in the council chamber.
Therefore, CEO, I'll bring you back to the other question where I asked if the Civic Recognition Working Group can override a decision of council, and it clearly states that a decision cannot be overrided. So I would say that if the intent of the Civic Recognition Working Group is to remove the first female former Lord Mayor of the City of Adelaide from the council chamber, a rescission motion is required to do so.
Sorry, Lord Mayor, I'd just like to point out this has moved from questions into a discussion with the administration.
It is. I think we've had another. Maybe we would have another question on notice because.
No, absolutely not, Lord Mayor. I don't think either.
Well, if you don't want a question on notice,
I don't think either of these questions have been answered correctly. They go against the council decision. So
I'm sorry, you might not like the answers, but they're the answers that were given. I'm sorry, we can't debate them any further. We don't debate questions on notice.
I'm not debating, Lord Mayor.
I think you are, Councillor.
No, I'm saying that the answers are incorrect.
Well, that's your opinion, but I think the
not
administration do the best they can to respond. Please sit down.
To have 6
Councillor
women
Giles.
in council, and I will be lodging a complaint.
So I just wanted to clarify, because the way I read the minutes were that they weren't all to be in the chamber, including Catherine Helen Spence, which was going to be above the public gallery. Oh, that's in the chamber, yeah. So I'm sorry, I was just going to refer Councillor Kouros to the minutes and the way the minutes read.
Chamber, thank you. Councillor Kouros, please. I'm warning you.
Lord Mayor, I am sorry, there is a council decision.
I'm sorry, Councillor, this is not the time to make that council decision. I think we'll move on. Are there any other questions without notice? No. We'll move on now to the exclusion of the public, item 21. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Abrahimzadeh, seconded by Councillor Noon. All those in favour? Oh, all those against? That's carried. Councillor Kouros, are you voting? The exclusion for the public. I'll take the vote again. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, members. Can I ask the public to leave? I think they've left. It's been a fractious meeting, but it's still only 8:15. Thank you very much indeed.